Hello everybody. You should be really glad to have me for this class because in my undying efforts to make this a better class for you, I just went out and bought myself a rather expensive video camera. I got tired of running out of memory on the iPad after talking for about 5 minutes, so much to your delight, I now have a camera that has a memory that lasts for about 9 hours, and that's if I don't plug it in. That's how long the power lasts. And I have a 64 whatever it is memory chip in it, plus a 64, so I can literally now talk to you for hours and hours and hours about this content, and I'm sure you sincerely appreciate that. Now, I want you also to know that I bought this camera solely for the benefit of you guys, not for any type of recreational use. So if anybody from the IRS should ask you why I'm writing this camera off on my taxes, you know that this is a legitimate business expense. Anyway, today we are on chapter 4 and we're going to talk about how to actually teach and run your class. Let me see what the title of the chapter is here real quick. Teaching students and managing instruction. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. And the first thing I want to talk about are the systematic teaching steps. And these are described on pages 124 through 128 of your textbook. Now, the key thing to keep in mind is the first thing you always have to do with your class before you can teach is get their attention. That's why I try to always start the class with something a little amusing or something just to make sure that you're focused. Because if students aren't paying attention, they can't learn anything. As you look through, you'll see, and I really seriously encourage you to pay attention to these steps, you'll see that the textbook discusses explicit modeling, where you specifically show students how to do what you're doing. That's what I've been doing as far as showing how to introduce the lesson. Then guided practice. After you've showed the children, guide them through how to do the activity that you're trying to teach. Then review the lesson, preview what's coming up next so that students have an organizational scheme, and then provide independent practice. Also, make sure that over time you continue to monitor students' progress and promote generalization. Teach kids exactly where they can use the skills. You'll find this on pages 124 through 128 of your textbook, and it's really good to know these things because that's the difference between just presenting material and actually teaching material. Okay. Then the book talks, after that, it talks a little bit about self-reinforcement, self-monitoring, and self-evaluation. It encourages the use of this as a strategy for kids. And that's very good if you can pull it off. But you have to keep in mind that first you have to teach kids how to be accurate and honest with assessing their performance. They have to know whether or not what they're doing is right, and they have to know, and they have to be honest as far as reinforcing themselves. For example, I may tell you that I look like Brad Pitt, and you may say that my self-perception is wrong. Or I may tell you that I look like Brad Pitt and I'm not, and I'm lying. You could run into the same types of problems with students if you're using these approaches. Students might either think they're doing something accurately and reinforce themselves, or not realize that they're doing it inaccurately. Or you could have students that are just being dishonest. So you need to make sure that you're keeping an eye on this, even as you teach children skills independently. Again, we come back to classroom management, and the chapter talks a lot about making rules, so I'm going to tell you something different about making rules. And that is, first, you want to always have a positive classroom climate. If you have a positive classroom climate, students will want to be there and everything else will work. And the best possible type of classroom climate is teaching students something that they're really very much interested in learning. If you're teaching a child how to drive and you kick him out of the driver's ed car because of his behavior, he's going to learn not to misbehave that way because he thinks it's very important to learn to drive. So keep that in mind. Everything works better when students want to be there. Second, when you're making rules, always tell students what to do rather than what not to do. Tell the students to walk single file in the hallway, but do not tell them not to run in the hallway. If you tell students not to run in the hallway, they can roll down the hallway, they can skip, they can do somersaults, they can do anything but run, and they're following your rule. So make sure that your rule is specific and tell them what to do rather than what not to do. Do not enforce rules that you haven't made yet. If you try to do that, if you have a rule against using, and this is a dumb example, but if you have a rule against using an ink pen in class and you give a student for a 0, well, let's say you don't have a rule. You give a child a 0 on a paper because they used an ink pen rather than a pencil, and you had never made that rule, that child is going to think that you're unfair and they're going to be right. This is not a battle of wills between you and the students. If you have not made the rule and the student's doing something you don't like, let them get away with it the first time, then make the rule and then enforce it after that. Also keep your rules limited to 5. You only need a maximum of 5 rules. Students simply aren't going to remember more than that. One of the ideas that I like is giving, and I think this is of my own creation, is give students a quiz on the rules and make them keep taking that quiz until they get 100% on it. Every student should know exactly what the rules are. They should be able to write the rules, and then they don't have an excuse to not follow the rules. And if you make them take a written quiz on it until they get 100%, you have written documentation that they know the rules. This is exactly why I give you a syllabus quiz. When I give you a syllabus quiz, I have documentation that I have told you what due dates are, what procedures are in the class, and that type of thing. And I have written documentation so you can't come back later. This is a good policy to do with your students also as far as rules. And then the last thing, and I can't stress this enough, is teach procedures over and over. For all the things you expect students to do many times, teach them exactly how you would like them to do that. Everything in class that students do should be done predominantly out of habit, as far as sharpening pencils, lining up, throwing away trash, erasing the board, volunteering. As much as possible, if you teach procedures and students are behaving out of habits in the ways you want them to, you're going to have very few problems. Also, when a student does not follow the procedure, you do not discipline the student. You simply make them go back and do it the way they're supposed to. Okay? No punishment, you just make them do it until they do it correctly. This is why when you send me a paper via email to fgcu.edu, my FGCU Eagle email account, if you have not named it correctly, I simply send it back. I respond by saying, please rename and resubmit, or please rename as shown in the syllabus and resubmit. I don't fuss at you, I just make you do it the way I want it done, in a time-saving, efficient way, until it becomes a habit. So that's all you do. You don't have to be a bad guy, just make them keep doing it over until it's right. Okay, the next thing about your class that it talks about in this book is the importance of having engaging lessons. And again, this is the idea of having a classroom where students want to be there. Be interesting if you at all can. Always be yourself unless you're a mean person. If you're a mean person, don't be yourself. Nobody likes mean people, okay? If you're a mean person, get a job as writing parking tickets, which may be useful, but get a job where you get to go around and do things that make people unhappy. But as a teacher, you want to try and maintain a positive classroom environment. So be yourself. You don't have to be strict, or you don't have to ever be mean, as long as you are consistent in following the rules that you have set. And try your best to be interesting to your classes. Use specific praise. Tell students exactly what it is that they're doing correctly. Tell a student, thank you for sitting quietly at your seat, writing on your paper. This way, a student doesn't get confused about what it is they're doing correctly and what they're not. Allow students to have choice between activities. Okay, whenever possible, if students have a choice, they're more likely to do something than if you just tell them to do something they don't want. So, give them a choice that's in your best interest. If for example, if you've got a student, I remember telling a student he could either take a test or he could spend that hour copying out of the textbook word for word. Obviously, he didn't want to copy out of the textbook, so he took the test. If I had just given him the option of taking the test, he might have refused to do it. So try to give choice. Also, try not to have the same activity for too long. The older your student is, based on grade level and age, obviously, the longer their attention span is going to be. But try and vary things up and make the things that are more interesting come after things that are less interesting. Don't show a video and then do math. Do math and then show a video. And maybe even do math and then show a video that relates to math. Or have a game that relates to it. But try and keep things interesting by changing things up. Use on page 138 through 141, the book describes some accommodations that you can use with students. Use all of these and anything else that you can think of. Remember that the goal of school is not for students to work. It's not for students to behave, although that's essential for them to learn. The goal of school is for students to learn things. So anything that you can do that makes it easier and more efficient for students to learn things is a good thing. So look at all those accommodations, think of anything else that you can, do whatever it is that you can help these students to learn. Because just as I told you the very first week, I believe it was, that I'd like to retire and collect my Social Security, you want your students to be employable so you too can retire at some day far down the road and collect Social Security. So make sure you educate them so that they've got good skills. Finally, at the end of a lesson, take a few notes on what you did and what worked well and what didn't work well. And that way, when you come back to that lesson, you can change it the next time. I do this with my classes. If I have an assignment and there's something that I think, wow, I should have changed it, I note it right away, and I even edit it on my computer and save it. Because the next time you get around to teaching the same skill, it may be a year from now, and you may not remember it, or you may be in the middle of teaching it. So make sure to make notes about what's working for you well and what's not working for you. If you do that, and if you keep all your materials well organized in ways that you can find them, you will find that after 3 or 4 years, you have a whole collection of very good materials and very good lessons, and your job will become not only easier, but you will do your job better. Remember, this isn't something, just like I say, you should make it easy for students to learn, make it easy for you to teach. You don't get paid extra for working hard. Work smart and get good results. And in order to do that, think about each lesson for a few minutes after the lesson, make notes, organize what you've done, and over time you will accumulate great stuff that makes your life much better. Okay, we're at the end of this chapter for chapter 4, so I'm going to close. But again, I want to let you know that you've got my phone number, you've got my email address. Get a hold of me if you're having problems or there's something I can do to help you out. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Read the book. Save the book. Use it when you get your job. Keep the book as a resource. All right, see ya. Bye.